Okay, so I know it says the 20th on the opener. If you guys will go ahead and make sure, if you have not done so already, scratch the 20th off and go ahead and put 1128. So the first equation that we're going to solve, you should be able to identify what type of equation it is based on what's in the equation. So looking at this, what's the sign? Square root. So if it's a square root, if there's a square root in the equation, we're going to look at our notes, solving equations with square roots. So solving equations with square roots, I know I'm going to set up the same way by circling my variable, by drawing my line of equality. But what's the next thing I'm going to do, Jaden? After I circle my variable and I draw my line of equality, what's the next thing I'm going to do?
You circle the little thing or equal square, the little thing.
Yeah, I box the square root. So what am I going to put in my box here? What all numbers am I going to make sure I include in that box?
3e plus 4.
Good, because that's all under the square root sign, so I have to make sure I put that all in the box. Now, the second part of step 1 says, use the golden rule to get the square root or the box by itself. So in order to do that, remember, I'm going to use PEMDAS backwards to determine what to get rid of first. Kaylon, since you had your hand up, what do I get rid of first here?
Plus 4, you're going to turn it to a minus 4.
Okay.
Then you're going to pull it over to the 19, and then that's going to equal 15.
Okay.
And the 2 4's going to cancel themselves out.
So what do I bring down on my left side?
Then you bring down your 3 square root, 3e plus 5.
Okay. Is my square root by itself? So what I have boxed up above here, is that now by itself in the second step? No. What do I have to get rid of next?
You got to go to the 3.
Yeah. So that 3 is touching the square root sign, which means to multiply. The inverse operation for multiplication is divide. So I'm going to divide each side by 3. So that cancels. Okay. What do I bring down on my left side here?
You're going to bring down that little square root thing, little 3e plus 4.
Good. And then on my right side, 15.
I mean 5.
5. Much better. You're going to say 15 divided by 3 equals 5. That's where that thought process is going. Okay? Is my square root now by itself? Yeah. So if it's by itself, I'm ready to move to step 2. What's that little 2 thing called? Square. So I'm going to square both sides of the equation. Square and square root are inverse operations, so they cancel each other out. So on my left side, what do I bring down?
You're going to bring down that 3e plus 4. Simple.
And then on my right side, 25. Now what type of equation do I have?
Two-step equation.
2-step, right. What do I get rid of next? You guys are pros at this part.
You're going to get rid of that positive 4 with a negative 4.
Okay? What's that equal? So how do I rewrite my equation? What do I write?
On the left side, put 3e. No. Yes, you is.
Yeah? Keep going. 3e what? Equals 21. Last step, how do I get the e by itself?
Do division. Division.
So then e is going to equal
7.
7.
Simple.
Nice.
There you go.
So on your quiz tomorrow, you're going to have 2 solving equations with square roots. And then you're going to flip your quiz over, and you're going to have 2 solving equations with squares. So 4 problems is worth, hold on, your guys, it's worth 20 points. Thank you, Ethan. That's for your pictures.
I never got a purple pass.
That's for club photos. Not until 5th hour. Okay, so we know that the first equation was solving equations with square roots. Now looking at this equation, I see the exponent 2, so it's going to be solving equations with squares. So I'm going to flip to the note sheet, solving equation with squares. I'm going to start by circling my variable, drawing my line of equality, and then I'm going to box the square. What is being squared in this particular problem?
The L. The negative.
Yeah, everything within the parentheses. Now, what if it was written like this? What if it was written like what I wrote up above here, the 2f squared? What would be squared in this particular?
The F.
Just the f. Good, because it's not all in parentheses. Good, David. All right, moving on. We're going to use the golden rule to get the square by itself. Because that's still part of step 1.
Right, you know what you're gonna do?
So what am I going to get rid of first?
That's -1. That's gonna become a positive 1.
All right, Damon, that's your participation. I don't want to hear you talk anymore through this
Yeah.
part of the opener after you finish answering it. So what do I bring down on my left side?
You gonna bring down one?
Damon, keep going.
Oh, wait, what I'm doing?
After you finish this part, you're done with this problem.
125.
Okay?
Oh, get the left side first. I'm sure. You gonna bring down that 5, the parentheses, 2F, -3, parentheses, 2. Oh, you got it. Yes, you is.
That's a 2.
No, like a square.
There we go. That's a big difference. Okay, nice. Damon, you're done with this problem, so I don't want to hear your voice anymore for right now. Kaylon, next part.
So next part that you do is you would do your 5.
Why? You're right. Just explain to me why.
Oh, you would do your 5 because it's the number outside the parentheses.
'Cause-
So you would do divide 5 from 5, then it cancel itself out, and you do it on 125.
Because our ultimate goal is to get what by itself?
The F.
Not, well, that's true. The end result goal is to get the f by itself, but our first goal is to get what by itself?
Squared.
The square. Good, Jalen. Okay, go ahead, Kaylon. So what do I bring down on my left side?
You bring down 25,
Okay?
25, and you bring down, you don't need no parentheses no more. So you will do F.
Hold on.
2F minus 3, square root. Square.
Okay, now if I don't put my parentheses on, what's being squared here? Just if I don't put my parentheses in, what's being squared?
The 3?
Just the 3, but in actuality, what's all being squared?
Oh, so you
So
need the parentheses.
We still need them
Oh,
for this next step. Now we're going to lose them in just a moment. All right, Kaylon, you're done with this particular problem.
Jaden.
Okay, so now I need to ask myself, is my square, what I have boxed up here, is it now by itself?
Yes.
You can't talk.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know it's really hard for you. So, some non-boy, like some person I don't know, said yes, it's by itself. So that means I moved to step 2. So, according to our notes, if the square is by itself, what do I do, Deja? Nope. Jalen? I wouldn't square both sides. That's not what my,
Oh, come here.
say it again. I would not square it. Jalen?
Go
Jalen?
ahead, no, go ahead, Daisy.
No, she didn't.
Go ahead, go. Oh. I want to say it, but cause you like to say no to everybody. So, and I know I'm right, but if I say it, you like nah. But what you want to do is, put that line across that 3 in that square, and then put the square on 25.
Put a what over it?
Square on 25.
Say it one more time. A what?
Square. Oh.
I want to make sure you're saying it right. Put a what over it?
Square root.
Okay, so if I put a square root on one side, I have to put it on the other. So
Yeah, but then
the
you-
square root, it's not the square that cancels with the 3. It's a square root that cancels with the square. So the square root cancels with the square. And since I drew the square root sign on one side, I have to draw it on the other. All right, Jalen, what do I bring down on my left side?
Then you supposed to put a 2 square.
On my left side, kiddo, what do I bring down on my left side?
I'm tripping. 2F minus 3.
Okay, and then on my right side, what's the square root of 25, Jalen?
5.
Good, now you're quiet. Deja, now what?
What should you take away from the?
So I'm right here. What do I do now?
What you take away from the 3? That's what I want.
Okay, so what do I do? How do I get rid of that 3?
Plus 3
Plus 3.
on both sides.
Okay, what do I bring down on my left side?
2F,
Equals?
8.
Michael, what's the last step that I do?
Say that again.
What am I going to do? How do I get the f by itself? What do I do from here?
8 minus 2.
Ooh, not minus. If the variable is touching the number, It means to multiply. What's the opposite of multiply?
Divide.
Divide.
And so the answer is F equals 4.
There we go. So then we're going to get F equals 4. And box it.